trying to chase a back pin behind the green, which then he leaves himself a bunker shot that he has to land down a hill, which is a shot he can't make, and then just leaves it in the bunker, trying to hit a perfect shot again.
Yeah, and think about it,
this is shit that I do on the course.
Exactly. I do the same thing. So this is not us saying that, like, we are smarter than Oberg on a golf course or anything like that. It's like, dude, you have so much talent. So I love your example of 16 at Bay Hill, because of all players on the golf course, he is among like the ones who are like, he shouldn't be. If anyone's making that mistake, it should not be him, because he has more room to work with than anybody else outside of maybe Rory in terms of his ability to stop the ball with just pure height. So he can take on, more of the water. He can land it further past the water and be safe. So he can actually take on the water in a way that others can't. That water's short, which means that he should never, ever, ever be missing that long. It's just, man, like it's really, really frustrating when you want to see the best Oberg possible. It's also really, really rewarding when you're on Twitter calling him a Ponzi scheme.
At Mayo Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience 2026 Memorial Tournament DraftKings picks and preview, plus an Underdog best ball update to see how we're doing. Alex Blickle from FTN Fantasy on the line with me. How are your Underdog teams going?
They're doing pretty well. I've got one remaining in the big scramble over on Underdogs, the contest that I did, and it's in decent shape. It needed the CJ Cup. It got the CJ Cup. It went from worst to first that week, and then at Colonial, I got passed by the guy who was just a little bit behind me again. So it's all going to come down to this final week, and that's really exciting.
There's so much maneuvering going on. I'm still alive in 3 contests. My big 150. I actually have three of 3 teams still kicking in that. I could maybe get to 2 sneaking through, which would be awesome, because I believe it's a 6-person final. That if I could have 2 of the 6 teams, that would be great. But 1 is through right now, and I have 2 in the big scramble. 2 of 2 are advancing in the big scramble, but only 1 of 6 now are advancing in the regular scramble. So having 1 of 261 teams probably isn't going to be enough. But if I can get through, I think my teams are positioned in a way where I'll have at least 6 guys at Canadian Open and 5 guys at John Deere, with Scottish Open Championship, US Open, all that fun stuff. I'm going to have full teams for those. That when we go back and reverse engineer everything, I think the 1-4 build for each of the segments, and hopefully you get lucky in between, is the move.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, one of the big takeaways that I have this year is all of my best teams took the same strategy, which was I took like the best non-signature players as early as I could. And then I kind of backfilled it with, guys like Fitzpatrick, for example, who, I got him in like the 7th and 8th round at times. And there wasn't really a reason why he was going that late. And it was like, he's also one of the signature guys who's going to play some other week. So really kind of almost flipping the build from what a lot of people did. And I think that's the thing that I'm going to carry on to next year's more than anything else. And the other thing is, like, I feel like, number one, like, look at the success that you've had in best ball. Like, your advance rates are insane this year. I'm definitely going to take inspiration from that and play PGA best ball a little bit more aggressively next year instead of just doing the big scramble.
Well, we can bring up my teams on the screen right now just to see where I'm at. Listen, I could have a bad week in Memorial and then all is lost and I get no one through, but in the PME, I'm probably not going to come back in either of my 2 teams that are in 4th place right now. Just even looking at what I have on the go. Hey, Byron's in that one too. So it's like Scottie. Well, I do have Scottie, Rory. So I have Scottie and Rory on this team. If that can somehow, if you finish this Scottie, Rory on the leaderboard, I think we're looking all right. But the team that's actually advancing at the moment, I got like a 150-point lead right now to hold on to one of the 2 spots, which would be nice. Siwoo, was Siwoo the best pick of the draft?
Definitely one of them. I think Nikolai and yeah, I think Nikolai might end up being the top guy. At least there have been times where he was, and I think he was near the top, if not the top, last segment. But it's also one of those things where, like, any of these guys who have been spectacular to this point could lay an egg in the final, and and like you just don't know. So I do like the way the PGA best ball has these segments like so equally weighted in terms of how many events there are, whereas in NFL best ball, like you were just totally at the mercy of singular week variance. So I like that aspect of PGA best ball a lot more than NFL best ball, but it is still vulnerable to that same type of just total randomness where you can have a guy dominate for 3 segments and then not do much in the final.
Well, a lot of it turned out, just looking where I'm at right now, is kind of what you hit on. Those guys that play signature events. I mean, Bridgman kind of got here because he had such a hot start to the season. Now he's in everything, and he was going to be in the signature events anyway. I thought that he would have played more in the other section of the year, but it's about nailing those guys in like the last 3 picks that you need for the other tournaments. And they don't even have to be great, but you can see like Alex Smalley was a very popular last round pick of mine. Just, he's going to play. Austin Eckroat was another one. Who are the guys that I have down here right now? Like Penge didn't really do much, but Eric Cole ended up coming through. Griot has started to come through. Brennan has started to come through. And Cootie kind of screwed me on a lot of my like just general scramble teams because he ended up skipping, I believe it was Honda, and I really needed him to have 6 of 6 at Honda, but now he's back playing like all the Goober tournaments again. And Sung Jae is kind of the same way. He's been playing all these weird tournaments that he was an absolute dud because he got hurt for the first part of the year, but you're managed to sneaking him through. You can see like I still have a bunch of Jake Knapp teams that are still alive. He's finally coming back this week.
Yeah, I think he's going to be an interesting conversation as far as DFS is concerned. So hopefully he can start scoring again.
So, but a lot of it has to do with, I think, Mitchell, Eckroat. I mean, I don't know about Smalley anymore. We're all going to play in Canada, and that Canada, John Deere are really the 2 linchpins of the final segment.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that type of guy has been the key all season. And we talked about it too. Like one of the biggest issues that we've run into is guys that we drafted to continue to play these events kind of throughout the season. Well, one of the reasons why our teams have done really well is because those guys have played super well, like Nikolai Højgaard. But then the other side of that is he played so well that he didn't play either of the last 2 events that, initially certainly would have been on his schedule. At least one of the 2 would have been on his schedule. So you do run into that issue. And I don't think there's really anything you can do to plan for that outside of the fact that, maybe you, instead of trying to build a lineup where like you have 6 guys in the signatures and 6 guys out of the signatures, maybe you build it a little bit even more favored to the out of the signature events guys, just so that you leave yourself room to continue to fill those non-signature events, even when 1 or 2 of your guys play their way out of those.
Well, you can even see by like the players that I ended up going with, Bridgman in particular, was I wanted to, and I didn't expect him to win Riv, and so here we are. Goddard was kind of in that same boat as well, that I wanted to take guys that were not quite established, yet still in all the signature events. That was sort of my ploy going into all of this, thinking that, hey, these guys are tasting money for the first time ever. I didn't expect them to have a combined 3 wins in the first 6 weeks of the season, thus not having to play anymore. But even if they did do well in the signature events or middling in the signature events, that they would still show up to Colonial. They would still show up to CJ Cup, or not all of them, obviously, because they're going to be playing in the signature events, but more than Rory and Scottie and those types of guys.
Yeah, and like the pure, like perfect run out is you have a guy who continuously plays well and finishes 10th or 6th or something like that, and is giving you a ton of fantasy points, but not getting enough FedEx Cup points, or not going high enough on the money list where he's actually earning his way into the elevated events and things of that nature. Like Højgaard, I think, what is it, 2 second place finishes, and like that was enough. Where if he had just continued to fade a little bit and finish 6th each time, then he would have still been playing. So it's like just an incredibly hard needle to thread perfectly, but that's kind of the nature of the variance of best ball.
Like looking at it for next year, just based on like where the top 50 stands right now, and the top 50 will get into the signature events, you can almost say like Matt McCarty, Nico Echeverria, not that these guys are necessarily going to qualify inside the top 50. Those 2 would be targets. Heat Setsune would be a target. Yella Miraju would be a target. Patrick Rogers, maybe not Harry Hall. That's probably about it, and Eric Cole from that list. And then if some of these other guys can sneak in, like, Shane Lowry, not so much. Ricky Castillo, yes. That's sort of the game that I think that you need to play. That's why Michael Kim ended up being even though Michael Kim hasn't had the best season, him going in the first round, he's probably paid off close to that price.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there was so much variance in the way some draft rooms drafted where, I've seen teams from other people where they got Michael Kim in the third and things like that. So in my pod, 4 of the 5 have Ludvig Oberg. I got him in the 5th. Everyone else who has him got him in the 3rd. And so, like, there are weird discrepancies. And then there are also somewhere it's just like you think, oh man, what value that was. But then you notice, well, okay, but my 3rd round pick, they got in the 5th round. And so sometimes it's reversed. And it was just kind of weird how different one draft room was to the next in a way that you don't see in NFL best ball.
You don't, but that also the only time that you see it, which when you say that you got Fitz in the 7th, I have a ton of Fitzpatrick because I think I took him in every draft when I first started drafting. And for about 2 weeks that he was going in the 7th round, then the 6th round, then all of a sudden he was the 3rd round pick, probably where he should have been to begin with. And then it was like, okay, I don't need as much Matt Fitzpatrick at this price. I have enough Matt Fitzpatrick at this point when I was able to pair him with guys that he just simply would not be paired with anymore. That I think that there is, drafting early in golf versus doing it in NFL. Maybe some people in NFL do have a really good track record of drafting teams in May and it all works out for them. But it feels like golf is a bit more predictable of you don't have to wait for OTAs or injuries. I guess Sungjae got injured, but I don't even think we really knew that by the time drafts ended, did we?
I don't think so. I know I kind of got lucky to not draft much Sungjae. I think I had one Sungjae team out of the 20 and yeah, I think that was completely unknown and because he was still going like end of the 1st, end of the 2nd, something like that for most of the draft season.
It was him, Michael Kim, Straka.
Yeah.
That was kind of the range at the end of the 1st round.
Yeah, the fact that I had so much love for Straka is kind of the thing that got me off of Sungjae. And unfortunately, Straka hasn't done what some of our other top picks like Siwoo has done. So he hasn't been quite as value as I think he could have been.
Yeah, well, if we were to redraft today, Siwoo would have to be the number 1 pick, I would think.
I think so. Yeah. I think there's this chance that Scottie would still be the number 1 just because people would say the only way that I can get Scottie is if I have that first pick, whereas Siwoo's going to fall to 2 or 3 or 4 some of the time. So,
but I'm just saying if we counted, if we were just drafting for this year and we could just put ourselves in a time machine back into January, I would take Siwoo number 1 every time.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Because he played 7 non-signature event major tournaments and played well in them all.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other guys can fill in the spots elsewhere. So I think it's really interesting to look back at it now. Hopefully we can sneak our teams through here with the last tournament of this segment and then figure out what's going on from Canadian Open to Open Championship. And whether it be me, you, someone watching this show or listening to this show out there, I'd like to see a nice 5-figure win from someone in these contests. Because I gotta say, obviously I'm still doing the DraftKings show. This show is brought to you by Underdog. I'm not super into NFL best ball all that much, the same way that other people are, but this has been my new favorite game in a really long time. And everyone who has played PGA best ball, I think, has really enjoyed it.
It's so much fun. And like I said, I think it's actually a better format than NFL best ball. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't love NFL best ball. I absolutely do. I'm already doing, plenty of NFL best ball drafts. I think it's a ton of fun, but from just like a pure, like, how good is this game? And specifically, how good is this game at rewarding you for having good strategy, good roster construction, and, being right about your conviction plays and things of that nature. PGA best ball is really, really hard to beat because you get such a long sample for each segment.
I would actually push back on that. So I've had a lot of success the past 2 years that I've played. I think that there are so few people talking about it, writing about it, and trying to come up with good strategies for it that I think the strategy is really obvious and not enough people do it. And I wrote that I did a show on it in probably end of December, early January when drafts were going on. I wrote a big article about it that just get yourself through. Like, I drafted against so many people where there was clearly 2 people out of 6 in those drafts that knew what was up. And the other 4 people were like, oh, they would have 12 guys from signature events or majors. Like, oh, let me take Bryson. It's like, I don't think you know what you're doing, man.
I completely agree. But I also think that point kind of shows the accuracy of what I said, because if you are doing things well, if you are drafting well, if you do understand the scoring system and how it works, you're going to be rewarded for that, in part because nobody else understands, or not enough other people understand what's going on in that nature. And you might have a draft room, like you said, where only 2 of the 6 people actually recognize what you're trying to accomplish in the draft. But even if it was all 6 understood it, I think you'd still be rewarded for, finding small subtle advantages. It would just be harder to find those.
They would be harder to find, and I think that the people in the know about piling up signature events majors versus non-majors to really get those points, because that was still the part that was lost, I think, on a lot of people. Because you mentioned you made that big move at CJ Cup. Well, what was the difference between CJ Cup and something like this week at Memorial? It's going to be like triple the winning score under par at CJ Cup than it is at Memorial. So you're going to get close to triple points.
Yeah, and to that point, like I had 633 fantasy points at the CJ Cup. The second best in my pod that week was 454, and compare that to the top score at the Cadillac was 546. The truest was 538. The PGA Championship was 437. So then 633 at the CJ Cup. Why? Because they're just making that many more birdies. This past week the high score was 441. Kind of a combination of the lower scores and fewer guys actually playing. So I think like the most anyone in my pod had last week was 7 players playing. And, there were a bunch of us tied with 7. I would have had 8 if Wyndham hadn't won the prior week and withdrawn. So it was weird. Like at the CJ Cup, I had Wyndham. I'm rooting for Wyndham to do really well. And then with like 3 holes left, I'm like, wait a minute. I probably don't want Wyndham to win, because if he wins, he probably withdraws next week, and I need him playing that week. So it's fun. I think it's, in addition to just being like a really good game, it also creates this like really unique sweat that is it's unlike anything that you find in DFS. It's unlike anything that you find in other best ball sports, because you have this huge variable of the schedule is completely undetermined and continues to change throughout the year of when players play when.
Code Mayo at Underdog to get yourself that deposit bonus, and you can play in the pick'em game, but save it all up for NFL best ball, and then specifically PGA best ball. That's what I'm going to be doing with my funds for next year, just loading up on PGA best. Although I pumped in a bunch this year. Once I figure out how to utilize the Underdog draft room of like, hey, I want only this much of one player. At the end of it, I was hand drafting all my lineups, and I think all my hand drafted lineups did really well. That I had like 70 teams to go to try to max the scramble, and I just built power rankings on the site and just uploaded a CSV, and I was like, I went and looked at the teams like, oh, I drafted all of the same. I had I think like $700 tied into Byung-Hun An. That was no good. They left for live.
Yeah, that's not what you want. But I'm the same way. I have only hand built best ball teams to this point, both in NFL and PGA. I feel I know that there are some really good tools out there. I know that they can accomplish a lot of what you're trying to do hand building. I still feel like there's no way I can possibly have it automated to build as well as I can do just by hand, where I'm factoring in all the things.
Well, you know what it is? It's factoring in the people that you're drafting with becomes the huge variable in everything. Because you get a sense after 2 rounds the type of people that you're dealing with and where they're likely to go, especially off who they've taken at the beginning. If you upload a set of rankings, it's just not going to be able to react to that in real time. And one of the other main things that I like about PGA versus NFL, the drafts take like 8 minutes, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not a big ask to just hand build all your teams. And one thing that I learned kind of the hard way was the way I used to do it is I would say, okay, well, I'll just enter a bunch of slow drafts, and then at a certain point in the year, it became like, oh man, I got another notification. I have to go make another pick, and I kind of like lost the fun of it. It became just a daily chore that I had to consistently do. And so what I started doing instead was I would just find times in my day, and it's so easy with PGA because as you said, you only need 8 free minutes instead of 45 free minutes for an NFL best ball draft. Just do a live draft, and it's awesome. You just do it quickly, it's over, and then you want to do another one. So I loved it. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna do even more next year. And Pat, you're in the Discord now, so you can use NFL Pick'em to really bolster that bankroll for next year's PGA Best Ball season.
Well, I'm hoping that that PGA Best Ball is going to give me bankroll for what, 50 grand, 40 grand, and I think 10 grand in these contests. If I can just get myself to the finals, and the PME contest is great because, like I said, there's only 6 people in the final.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't do it, and I really wish that I had.
It filled really quickly.
That's the thing. I remember looking at it and saying, okay, I need to do a draft within the next day. And I looked like 16 hours later and it was already filled. So I tried. I just didn't get there in time.
Well, this happened because we ran an NFL Survivor that I did with 4 for 4 last year. And they came to me and they were like, hey, we want to give away $100,000 guaranteed. I was like, sweet. Right? I think that's what it was. Either way, it's like you need to fill like so many spots. They're like, we want to do a $50 one. I was like, don't do a $50 one. Do a $250 one. And I know that seems very counterintuitive, but there's only so many. Like everyone's playing Survivor, right?
Yeah.
That if you put it at a price point where you have to, like, especially for like me, you, the people watching right now, it's a lot about what we talk about even in DraftKings contest selection. Yeah, it's fun to play in the Millie Maker and pump in $5, $25, $10, whatever it might be. But for the one and done, let's say, $250, it's steep, but it's like $7 a week, and you don't have to beat that many people for that big of a payout versus what it would be if it was $10 or $50. I feel the same way about Survivor, that people will pony up at the beginning of football season for $250 if it means they have to face 1/5 the competition.
100%. The other thing that does, especially for one and done, is it keeps people in it for longer, right? There's nobody who has picked 6 of the first 10 winners just because there are so many people that someone's bound to get it right. And so anyone at this time of year is looking at it, and even if they've done really poorly, they're still saying, you know what, if I just get hot for the next month, I'm right back in it. And that means, they're invested for more of the season. It means they're more likely to sign up again next season. So I think you're dead on there that the fewer entries, higher entry fee is the way to go.
It is, and where it's a season-long commitment. Now, if this is a weekly commitment, obviously people couldn't afford that. But I think that when you branch it up, you're like, hey, there's 40 events. It's $250. Just do some quick math, January through the end of August. Like, just save up the money now, have it ready to go for January, or even for football season. You get your 18 weeks out of it, and if it's $250, and that means that I have to face 1,000 people instead of 5,000 people, all of a sudden it's a little bit easier to stomach because you have, in Survivor it's difficult, but imagine getting to the end of one of those big Survivors and you're just tied with 17 people. That would suck.
I wouldn't be able to stand it. And then then you got to have those conversations of, okay, guys, are we splitting this? Are we not splitting it? And somebody in that remaining group has done a better job than the others who have gotten there of saving teams for the final weeks and things like that. And now they have to be the bad guy and say, no, I want us to keep going. I don't want to just split it evenly. So yeah, it becomes a mess. And I like the smaller fields for sure.
It's funny too. I'm in the $1,000 one and done that has 5 people in it. First prize is $15,000. And I've been actively bad for, I had Rory at the Masters. I had Scottie at Cadillac when he came second, so that's like $6.5 million right there. Like $500,000 for Cam Young at the Truist, $364 from Fitzpatrick at the PGA Championship, $26,000 for Pendrith. No money from Harry Hall last week. I'm still in the money. I'm still in 7th right now. I'm well back, obviously, because the guy in first has 16. But if I get a win this week and he doesn't get a win, I'm in first or second again, which is nice.
How many people are in that one?
50, I think. 49.
That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm close to falling out of the money too. These are the weeks that really matter, but everyone's still kind of competitive in this almost throughout the end. You do need to hit a winner in one of these big events, but you would have to do that regardless.
I imagine you've also taken a different strategy in this one compared to the giant one, where you feel like, okay, I can do a little bit more of just kind of playing the best play since I only have to beat 50 people instead of whatever, 10,000 or whatever.
Yes. And as you'll see, I have 11,200,000 in the big one, and none of my other teams come close to that in the race for the Mayo Cup. I'm having a bad year. I hit Russell Henley last week on this team to get my second win of the year, but it's just been bad. Wrong guys, wrong week. it happens, I wouldn't say every other year, but some years, like, you can't miss in some of these big events and use the guys at the right times. And other times you burn Scheffler when he has his worst start of the year. It just happens.
I'm in the same way. And, I have one entry in the PME that I'm doing with Tambo for our Leverage Lane show. I have an entry in a different contest with a friend of mine that's a higher dollar one. And so, I've been really trying to like diversify what I play with Tambo, what I play with my own entries, what I play or who I play in the big money one. And it's been the same sort of thing. It's like I'm doing well in the big money one, which means that all of those guys I chose not to take for myself. And for myself, I've just been doing horribly all season. And the thing is, like, every week I feel like I'm down to, I don't know, let's say I'm choosing between three different guys. I haven't chosen correctly once. And more often than not, I've chosen the absolute worst of the three options for my own entries. And that's been the entire season for DFS too. It's been a bad run in a lot of ways.
Well, we're going to stick the needle into Blickle a little bit more to talk about his team at Colonial, plus a full Memorial DraftKings breakdown. Stay tuned. The Travelers Championship. Now is the time. This is the place. Every star, every round, every shot that makes your heart race as legends walk the fairways. Keegan Bradley, Scottie Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, Cameron Young, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, and other PGA Tour greats, all battling to be called champion. See the world's best for all 4 days. No cut. You'll feel the pressure before the shot, the roar when it drops. You'll stand close enough to see it all, the intensity, the focus, the moment when everything comes down to mere inches, and where everything makes you feel part of the moment. It's golf at its best, up close, open to all, and only here. The excitement starts June 24th and runs through June 28th at TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. For tickets and information, visit travelerschampionship.com. Now is the time. This is the place. Underdog's expanding the game. You already know their player picks. Pick higher or lower on player stats. Today, Underdog prediction markets are live in 25 states. Back your squad with spreads, handicap for closer game, or totals, higher, lower combined score, combined with player picks for bigger payouts. New customers play $5 on fantasy, get $75 in fantasy bonus entries. Code Mayo, team picks, player picks, all on Underdog. Before we get to the Memorial picks, Alex, I told you that I wanted to try to guess your team, but you set the stage of what happened to you at Colonial.
Yeah, I was in first place after the second day with a 6 for 6. Lineup was doing really, really well. And then my lineup combined on the weekend to shoot 16 over par. I did min cash out of it, but it was, I almost went worst to first somehow with the 6 for 6. So it was, it was bad enough that by like, the sixth hole of the final round, I was already checked out on my main slate lineup and just following showdown by that point.
Now, I want to try to guess who I think was on that lineup then.
One of them is going to be a really, really easy one to guess, I think.
Adam Schenk or Kevin Roy?
No.
So neither of those guys. Hoagie?
No. Who's the guy who was literally leading the tournament and then missed every single putt on Saturday?
Missed every single putt on Saturday. Oh, Tom Kim.
No, Jordan Smith.
Oh, yeah. But Jordan Smith still finished like, all right.
Pat, I'm not kidding you. He was leading the tournament. He gained like half a stroke off the tee with approach and around the green on Saturday and was like 32nd after the round. He lost over 4 strokes putting on Saturday, and he didn't have he missed, I think, a 4-footer for par on 5 and then like a 3-footer for par on 6. After that, he didn't have any really short misses. It was just 6-foot birdie putt miss, 6-foot birdie putt miss over and over and over again on the way to a birdie free 4 over par.
Did you have Harmon Akshay or Bobby Mack?
I had Bobby Mack.
Okay.
He was also a tough one because on Saturday morning when it was playing really, really difficult, he was 2 under on the day to get to 6 under. I was like, okay, Bobby's going to join the other guys that I have near the lead, and I'm going to have 4 guys up there contending. And then I think he played like 9 over from that point on or something.
Kiefer?
Nope.
Keegan?
Nope.
No. Then I'm way off on this. I thought this would be easy. Then who was it?
Yeah, let me remind myself because I'm having a blank moment for right now. But let's see. I had the other bad players that I had did not help at all. So let me just do it. This way.
You didn't have Thorbjorn Olesen his 80 on Saturday, did you?
No, I didn't. I had Eckroat, who had the craziest round of golf that I can remember in a long time, at least through 12 holes. He had an eagle, 3 birdies, no bogeys, and was 4 over par. He had 3 doubles and a triple through 12. So he didn't help. I had Sahith Theegala, who
You're addicted to Sahith, by the way.
yeah, I mean, I use him a lot for sure. There's no doubt about that. But actually, this was the first time I had used him in quite some time. And then I had my other. So we mentioned Bobby Mack. So those were the 3 that like weren't around the lead through 2 rounds, and they were not good on the weekend, especially Sunday. Bobby Mack 73, Theegala 73, Eckroat 76. But the bigger issue is all my guys around the lead just kind of faded. I had Gerard, and he went 68-72 on the weekend. I had Hideki, who went 70-71, and like, man, Hideki could have been like 8 strokes better on Sunday. Just every single hole was like the worst score he possibly could have made on the hole. And then the last one, as I said, was Jordan Smith.
So I had 4 guys within, I think, 2 shots of the lead going into the weekend in outright betting, and none of them had a chance. Not one. And they were the guys. And if you looked at the leaderboard, 3 of the 4 guys that I had were the guys that you probably would have wanted. It was Hideki, Akshay, and Harman. Like, okay, these guys have all won. These guys have all won multiple tournaments. Hideki's probably the best player in this field who's left. Mm-hmm. Why not him? Just no, not a chance.
Yeah, he was my only outright this week, Hideki. And I don't know if you had the same thought, but like when he hit it stiff on 11 and made the putt, I thought, okay, we might get the unconscious Hideki from here on out. And like those 7 holes are going to be enough. And basically, like I thought what Henley did down the stretch was going to be what Hideki did, or certainly what Hideki could have done. And Hideki was even starting at that point at an even lower score based on, how much Henley struggled through the middle part of that round. But no, it was Henley who went on that run instead. And man, Hideki had chances. He really, really did. There were a couple of holes where he drove it poorly and made bogey as a result. And then there were a couple of holes where he hit it stiff on a really difficult hole and just couldn't make the putt. And that was kind of that.
Is he someone this week at Memorial that you would be considering at his price point?
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into course fit, but this is a really good course for him. The only downside at Memorial for Hideki is that you do need to be accurate off the tee. Accuracy is significantly more predictive than usual, but this is one of the highest predictive values of around the green play that we see all season. It's 100% boost in the predictive value of around the green play. And that's Hideki's music combined with the fact that approach is also really predictive here.
So Siwoo should be awesome at this tournament.
He should. He really should. And like, in fact, this is the only downside for Siwoo is that you do see slightly more predictive value than usual for putting, but it pales in comparison to the boosts in accuracy, approach, and around the green. So this is a Siwoo golf course for sure.
So if we just jump over to the rabbit hole very briefly here at betsportsgolf.com/Mayo, get yourself a discount. The best around the green players over the past 4 months. Eric Cole, Scottie. If Scottie's won this each of the past 2 years, he's $13,500, and everything is setting up for him again. But then you have Fitz, Day, Cantlay, who's a 2-time winner here, Finau, Nick Taylor, who finished inside the top 5 a year ago, Sungjae, Snedeker. Good on Snedeker for playing himself into all these events. Ben Griffin, Harry Hall, there's Siwoo, there's Cam Young, there's Ludvig, Mav McNeely, another guy who finished top 5 a year ago, Fleetwood. I always thought that this would be a Fleetwood course, but he's just he's like not doing anything right now. It's really bizarre. Like his iron play is actively bad.
This is a Fleetwood golf course through and through, but to your point, it's like, is it right now? Because there is him. I would lean towards saying this is still a Fleetwood golf course, and he was really good with the approach play at the Truist. So it's not like he hasn't spiked in that category in quite some time.
He hasn't, but he has like 3 of his past 4 tournaments. He's been bad with his irons. And I can't recall. I mean, it's happened twice this year already, both in signature events. Then you just kind of scroll back to his last few years. It'd be very so. The last time he had a run like this was in 2024 to begin the year, and he was kind of bad. Then he got his shit together and he was fine the rest of the season. But hell, you go back 5 years, he's basically been bad. In 2020 is the last time he's been as bad as he is right now with his iron play.
That's true. You can spin it a different way though. Like this is one of those things, obviously, where it's. I think Rob Pizzola talks about this a lot on your NFL show with him, where he says like anytime someone says 6 of the last 7 weeks or 6 of the last 8 weeks, something like that, you can also say okay, well that means it's 6 of the last 9 because they chose that specifically. So like 3 of the last 4 have been bad for Tommy, but he was fine at the Masters, and then he was really good at the Valero and the Players. So while it's true that only 1 of the last 4 have been good, you can also frame it as 3 of his last 7 he's gained over a stroke per round with the irons. I think it's probably in a little bit better shape than what a lot of people are going to give it credit for. It's also possible that he continues to struggle though. I think it just gets to the uncertainty of Tommy this week. But I'm usually of the mind that I'd prefer to embrace that uncertainty if the field is off of him.
So Scheffler's at 13.5, Rory's at 11.5, and then you have Cam, Ludvig, and that's it for the $10,000 range. I was really surprised that Ludvig got all the betting steam this week. I mean, I probably shouldn't be surprised, but Feinberg had mentioned he had bet him at 22-1 on the current betting board. Shout out coolbet.com and basically anywhere right now. Ludvig's now ahead of Cam Young.
I think that's insane.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean that's nuts to me. And I will say, in the contention performance score stuff that I do, Cam and Oberg are actually very similar in that, which I think will probably surprise people. Obviously, Cam has finished it this year. One of the reasons for that is because the contention performance score does factor in Saturday's winning contention as well. It's not just Sundays. So obviously Sundays stick in people's mind more than Saturday performance. But Cam has also really struggled some final rounds outside of the ones that he's won. And so it's been a weird mix for him where like lately he's either gotten it done playing really well or he's played poorly and just kind of fallen off.
Well, he's now becoming a victim, as we can see, of what used to plague him is the one bad putting round. Like at the PGA Championship, the last time we saw him on Saturday, lost 3.3 strokes putting and even chipped in and lost him around the green. Then you go back to the Truist when he came in 10th. He lost 5.5 strokes putting in the final round. Obviously, he wins at Doral. That's not a problem there. I'm guessing it's probably the same. Yeah, his opening round at Heritage, minus 2.6. And this is what we're seeing from Scottie as well right now. And when I went back and I reviewed Memorial from last year, the thing that stuck out to me the most about Scheffler and how he ended up winning the tournament. Obviously, T to green, he was good. He's always good, T to green. And he's not hitting his irons at the level that he has been over the past 2 years. But on Sunday, when it was him and Ben Griffin in that final group, you know what he did every single time he had a 7-footer for par?
Missed?
Made every one of them. And that's what he's been doing for a year and a half now. And that is really what he's not doing this year. The bogeys, those bogeys that just seem to maybe once around. But even when he came back and won the Players against Wyndham Clark and Harmon and those guys, he was the only guy to shoot a bogey-free round that day. It's not like he was just hitting it to a foot and tapping in birdies. Just he was, whenever he had to make an 11-footer, he made an 11-footer. And that's just not a part of his, and it's not something that can continue. It's just once he got to that level, it seemed like he would never miss once he figured out the putting. But that's just not where we're at with him right now, that he's become a victim of the same thing that I'm looking at with Cam Young right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think my Oberg take is very similar to that. It's basically that, like, he's just making too many unforced errors. We know that the really good Oberg is plenty good to win golf tournaments, things of that nature. And, he's absolutely elite, one of the absolute best on tour already at making birdies and making eagles. But most guys, like, you can tell when they're in a zone where they're just not going to make bogeys. They're not going to make mistakes. They're, even their mistakes, even their misses are in good spots and they're not that wide. And it's just going to take too many consecutive mistakes for that player to possibly make a bogey. Think of like Henley down the stretch, this past week. There was no way Henley was making a bogey in any of his last, 6 holes, something like that. There is no amount of like hot streak that Oberg is on where he's immune from the random bogey or the random double even. It's so odd how often but how consistently it comes up from him. And it reminds me of like a tennis player who leads in aces every event, but also just leads in unforced errors. Oberg makes way too many unforced errors, and that to me is the reason why he hasn't won recently, and not the fact that he's played poorly on some Sundays. I think his poor Sunday performance has just been an extension of this overarching issue where he's making way too many unforced errors and way too consistently making those errors.
And this is something this was Dustin Johnson's problem for ages. For like 10 years, this was Dustin Johnson's problem. And then he kind of figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the other difference there is DJ, he would struggle at times with his short game, but his short game was like extremely underrated. He was a really, really good around the green player.
It got good. It wasn't good, and then it got good.
Yeah, that's fair. And Oberg's is still at the point where it is flat out not good. And so I think the problem for him is those unforced errors, whether they're poor decisions, whether, like he's short-siding himself way too many times for someone who has as much control of the golf ball as he does in the air. When those unforced errors come from his long game, a lot of it has been off the tee. And that, I think that's where the in contention performance has really dropped off. Is like a lot of the time, he'll play 3 straight rounds where he's just money off the tee. He's automatic off the tee. And then Sunday he's in contention, and all of a sudden now he's in the trees and in the desert and so on and so forth. And so when those unforced errors come with the long game, he doesn't have the short game yet to make up for it, in the way that if Scottie has a really bad 9 holes of ball striking, he might not make a single bogey on that 9 holes because his short game is so solid. Oberg like immediately starts making bogeys as soon as those unforced errors come from the long game. And then you also have the inconsistent putting, as you mentioned, from him. So it's throughout the bag, the unforced errors and the fact that he doesn't have the short game or the putting consistency to make up for those unforced errors.
Well, the short-siding yourself is a really interesting point, because that's what the last time I bet on Ludvig was at Bay Hill. Because I do think that these classically long courses, Torrey, Genesis, Bay Hill, Memorial, like these are courses that are set up for his game. You know who he's starting to remind me of in a weird way?
Well, I would have said DJ, but you've already made that comp, so I think it's got to be someone else.
Peak Finau.
Ooh,
because this is what Finau would do. And this is why he failed to, he ended up winning, 6 or 7 times. And when it clicks, you're like, holy shit, this guy is good. And like when at Torrey Pines, Ludvig wins, like, oh, he went unconscious and no one could touch him because stuff didn't go wrong for him. But Finau had the bad habit of making par on the easy par 5 and then somehow birdieing by far the most difficult hole on the course. That was kind of his MO, that when he needed to hit a layup, he couldn't do it. Yet he'd jack up a 3 from half and it would go in. It was a really bizarre type of scenario for him. And he's someone else who at times struggled with short game, struggled with putting, even when he was really good. That Ludvig is still young enough that he can overcome that, I think. I think that overall, like the baseline for Ludvig versus peak Finau, like the ceiling is much higher on Ludvig, but I mean, we would have said the same thing about Victor. He's not even playing this week.
Mm-hmm. I do think an interesting thought that, I've seen about Ludvig is how much of his unforced errors come from how quickly he plays. Where is he giving every shot the necessary attention that it deserves? Personally, I don't think it's an issue. I think if anything like that should help him when in contention, because the quicker you play, the harder it is for those, negative intrusive thoughts to come into mind. But it is possible, I think, that, especially on the easier shots, as you say, like maybe it's on a layup where he thinks, okay, this is simple. I just got to step up, make the swing and advance it down the fairway, easy peasy. That's when the error comes and he just didn't quite think about it enough. But I don't think that's the issue, because as you said, like, man, so many times it's not just about the ease of the shot, it's where is the miss. And too often with him, the miss is in like the one spot you can't miss it. And for someone who has the control of the golf ball that he does, like that kind of miss is just inexcusable to happen over and over and over again, because as good as he is, he should be able to control, if I miss this, I'm missing left of the flag. If I miss this, I'm missing long of the flag. And way too often he's missing in the wrong way.
Well, it comes down to course management at that point. That it's not that he doesn't have course management, is that this was a Rory problem for ages too, for better parts of the past 10 years. He's just trying to hit the perfect shot every time. and he's not caring about the miss because he just assumes he's like that. That is weird. It was Tiger's superpower. It's been Scheffler's superpower. Is that if like on a par 5, like an easy par 5, Scheffler's good with a 35-foot eagle putt from going up a hill. Maybe he makes it, but if nothing else, it's a tap-in birdie. I've watched, especially on 16 at Bay Hill, where like Ludvig can get there. Short sides himself on a bunker, trying to chase a back pin behind the green, which then he leaves himself a bunker shot that he has to land down a hill, which is a shot he can't make, and then just leaves it in the bunker, trying to hit a perfect shot again.
Yeah, and think about like
this is shit that I do on the course.
Exactly. I do the same thing. So this is not us saying that like, we're smarter than Oberg on a golf course or anything like that. It's like, dude, you have so much talent. So I love your example of 16 at Bay Hill, because of all players on the golf course, he is among like the ones who are like, he shouldn't be. If anyone's making that mistake, it should not be him, because he has more room to work with than anybody else outside of maybe Rory in terms of his ability to stop the ball with just pure height. So he can take on, more of the water. He can land it further past the water and be safe. So he can actually take on the water in a way that others can't. That water's short, which means that he should never, ever, ever be missing that long. It's just, man, like it's really, really frustrating when you want to see the best Oberg possible. It's also really, really rewarding when you're on Twitter calling him a Ponzi scheme.
Starting something new is terrifying. I remember right before launching this show thinking, what if no one listens? What if it completely flops? And that's something that has persisted every time that I hit record and go to edit a show, even as I'm recording this right now. It never goes away. But taking that leap ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made. And honestly, having something like Shopify back then would have made it a whole lot easier. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses. Whether you're just getting started or scaling up, you can build a clean, professional store with ready-to-use templates that actually match your brand. No coding headaches. And it's not just a storefront. Shopify's got built-in AI tools to help write product descriptions, improve your pages, even upgrade your images. Plus, you can run email and social campaigns right from the platform like you've got a full marketing team behind you. That would have been great like 15 years ago, not gonna lie to you. Best part, everything lives in one place. Inventory, payments, analytics, so you're not juggling 5 different tools to run your business. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/PatMayo. Go to shopify.com/PatMayo. That's shopify.com/PatMayo. The change of seasons always gets me locked into that mode where I want to clean everything up, completely locked in, house, schedule, all of it. And this year, I realized my finances actually needed that same reset. Let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more scattered logins, just accounts, investments, properties, and more. All in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code PatMayo. For me, the big eye-opener was seeing my cash flow laid out. I thought I got everything dialed in, but Monarch showed me that wasn't so much the case. My savings rate had quietly slipped while my spending crept up. Happens. Let's get that fixed. I can do that with Monarch. Just fixing that got me back on track. Weirdly enough, my favorite feature turned out to be their weekly AI recap because it flags anything weird, spikes in spending, changes in net worth, so I'm never out of the loop on my own finances. Monarch isn't just tracking, it actually helps you plan ahead and stay accountable. Use code PatMayo at monarch.com to get your first year half off, just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code PatMayo. I do think that he's going to be the most popular play of these top-end options on DraftKings.
It's definitely possible. I mean, at 10-1, I think there's a chance that Xander's is popular, but certainly the group below that won't be as popular. And I think that you're probably right that he's more popular than both Cam and Rory. And then I'm not confident yet giving like a narrow range that Scottie could be in, because the price is so different than what we've seen for most of this year, down all the way now to 13.5.
As a two-time winner each of the past 2 years, then I can just see people going back to the Scheffler mold here. The last thing that I'll say about Ludvig before we move on and start building some lineups is what you talked about getting out of position at this course in particular on the review. And I don't know if this is because you said that around the green gets a super big boost in the course fit model, and where I can see that, but around the green play is really difficult here in a weird way. It's a lot US Open-y that it's far less about, how can I put this? Your around the green acumen. It's actually where you miss. So I would like to see a correlation between approach and around the green this week, because if you get behind one of these holes, you can only get it to 20 feet away from the hole. There's no stopping it out of this rough. It's not like you're going to hit the perfect little flop and it's going to trickle down to the hole. It'll trickle down to the hole, then it'll keep trickling. These are incredibly difficult bunkers that what I noticed last year, Nick Taylor did this really well, and Victor did this really well the year that he won, was when he would miss, he would just miss short or miss where he could chip up the hill and get the ball to nestle up to the hole. Because if you're hitting onto any sort of downslope and you're out of position, unless you're making a bunch of 25 footers, they're just insta bogeys.
You're 100% right. And I would take it a step further and say that one of the reasons, and additionally why around the green play is more predicted than usual here, is simply because they get more around the green shots, right? And so you have the emphasis that way. But there's also an element of, if you have a good short game, when you are out of position off the tee, when you're hitting your approach shot, part of the calculation is, if I'm in that bunker short right, I'm going to get this up and down. If I'm in the fairway short of this green, I'm going to get this up and down. If I'm short-sided long, I'm not going to be able to get this up and down. So part of the calculation of how you're actually approaching your approach shot is, from where can I get up and down? Where am I going to have a high likelihood of getting up and down? And then just selecting a club, selecting a shot that makes it more likely that if you miss, you're missing in one of those spots. And the players who have really good short games are able to do that more than the players who have poor short games, because the players with poor short games, even if they're missing in the correct spot, they still can't be like super confident they're going to get it up and down.
Let's start building some DraftKings lineups now. We'll start with a Scheffler lineup. As I said, two-time defending champion. When was the last time someone won 3 tournaments in a row? Like 3 of the same tournament every year. The last one I can think of is Stricker at the John Deere Classic.
I just saw this tweet earlier.
I saw that Tiger's done it 6 times in like the past 40 years, and like no one else has done it more than once.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yes, that was that was from Justin Ray this morning. Players to win 3 straight years at the same PGA Tour event over the last 60 years. Tiger 6 different times. 5 other players have done it once. I thought I saw that he followed that up with when the last one was, but maybe I'm wrong. So, yeah, I think Stricker comes to mind for sure. Other than that, might have been a Tiger one.
It may have been Tiger. Maybe Zach Johnson at the John Deere Classic is the only other one that I can really think of.
Did he really do 3 in a row?
I may have been 2 in a row.
Let's see.
I kind of want to know the answer, but I want to build this lineup too. So we throw in Scheffler. We now have $7,300 to work with, which is a big discount.
It really is. I mean, it's not just that you actually have more money now remaining. It's also like, because this is a signature event, look at the names who are in that range. It's so much better than like the names in, the PGA Championship that you had to use, or even before that, because the PGA Championship actually was one of the easier times to fit him. So, think prior to that week, how difficult it was to pair Scottie with 5 other players that you thought were quality golfers.
I really like Alex Fitzpatrick this week at $6,700. I think he's shown me, not that he can't miss the cut here, and there is a cut this week. People forget about that, which makes this just much better tournament. But
so much better.
He has shown up at these bigger events, at these longer courses, and dude is super accurate.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I don't love anybody under 7,000, to be honest, especially under 69. But Fitzpatrick is probably my preferred option down there.
So there's no one else that you would go with down here?
There are others that I would be willing to play, I think, in the right lineup, but there's nobody down here that I look at and say, okay, yeah, that guy's clearly underpriced for this field and for how good he is and how well he fits the course. Like, all the guys who I think are underpriced are in the sevens at the least.
So I guess the question would be, what's the opportunity cost of taking another one of these guys down here to improve your lineup? Because I think that there's some pretty good options here in like the lower. Like I really like Justin Thomas this week. If you go to CoolBet right now, you can still get that 50-1 number that's hanging on him. You want to talk about improved accuracy off the tee? Since he's come back, he's been good off the tee.
Yeah, he really has, and that makes him really interesting.
Doesn't sound like you're super sold on him.
No,
You can say it with a bit more apathy in your voice if you'd like to. You can say, Pat, that's a terrible pick.
It's not that I think he's a terrible pick. In fact, I think he's a pretty good pick, especially for DraftKings because he's such a good scorer. My hesitance is just that there are a lot of really good picks in this range. So when I compare Justin Thomas to anybody, around him or in like the mid sevens, I don't see as much of a difference as going from somebody in the mid sixes to the low sevens, something like that. So that's my hesitance. It has nothing to do with.
So what you're saying is that you don't see a difference between Justin Thomas and Aaron Rye,
right?
Because I do.
Or Nikolai or Sepp Straka, someone like that. Like I think those guys are all projected very similarly. And again, like I think you can give JT a clear ceiling edge for some of those guys, but the comparison is like, is there a larger difference between JT and Sepp Straka or a larger difference between Gary Woodland and Daniel Berger? Someone like that.
Honestly, at this course, I think Berger might be a nice fit.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. Akshay Bhatia or Daniel Berger?
I think those are pretty close. As someone who bet Akshay last week, I can tell you this weekend wasn't super fun. And but I think that JT is starting to ascend once again. Just when you take, he was second last week in ball striking to Henley. That would be sort of the range. Like I think he's better than Fowler. Not that I dislike Fowler. I think he's better than Bobby Mack. Hell, I think he's better than Hideki right now. He's better than Burns right now. Minwoo's price every single week just blows my mind. And I get that he's been good, but it's not like he's been awesome this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Minwoo's price is wild to me. I would put some of those names over JT that you mentioned. Like I'd put Hideki over JT right now.
You're like, what has Hideki done? Nothing. He just hits bad shots when he gets close to contention. Then he's out of contention. But he doesn't have a top 10 since Phoenix, which is a tournament he probably should have finished 68th in.
You are right about that. I mean, I think this is actually like a really fun conversation and one that we could make last like half an hour of how do you put guys into different buckets? Like how much do you weigh their actual leaderboard finishes versus just how they're performing in various categories? I still look at Hideki as somebody that I am extremely confident in his ability to be elite, both on and around the greens. And in that regard, I think JT is very comparable. Oddly enough, right now, where I have more confidence in Hideki than JT, which is kind of opposite of why JT has had the better leaderboard finishes of late, is that I'm more confident in Hideki's ability to gain on the greens. Hideki's putting has been really, really good this year outside of the Cadillac and the Truist, whereas with JT, you're really counting on like two total outlier events recently.
Sure,
maybe the new putter. That might be.
And he was okay last week. He was slightly bad, but most of that was just round one. He gained in the other two rounds. And since he's made the putting change, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, to me, it's just too small of a sample.
Yeah, but I think that as a big data guy, I understand your hesitancy for this, but every time that something like this happens and then we don't notice it, or we do notice it, and we're like, wow, maybe it'll revert back. And maybe you're right. But I think that just Scottie going from the blade to the mallet all of a sudden just fixed his putting. It could be the same thing. Hell, it happened. The reason that Justin Thomas did this is because it worked for Cam Young. And it's worked for Cam Young. Well, he's still going to have his bad rounds, as we've already showed. But overall, he is a much better, a much more reliable putter at this point in time. And if JT could just clean that up, you know what's not getting cleaned up? Hideki's terrible driving.
That is 100% the right concern, I think. And at this course too, that's the big issue. At least with this course, you don't need distance. So I think sometimes Hideki's accuracy concern comes from him trying too hard to keep up with some of the longer guys. And at least at this course, he knows he doesn't need to do that. So I think that helps his accuracy a little bit. But like he was also, putting himself in the trees on some holes at Colonial where he wasn't even hitting driver. So it's not like it completely eliminates that issue for him. And JT over the last few years, like accuracy off the tee has been an issue for JT as well. He's definitely been improved this year and was certainly very accurate off the tee at the Schwab. So I think I'm probably underestimating JT a little bit as we kind of talk through this and you make the JT case. I think you are correct that he's better than how I currently have him projected, but I also think that Hideki is a lot better than where you're currently kind of valuing him.
But maybe it's just the recency bias of me having bet on Hideki last week and watching him play and be like, oh my God, man. Because I think I tweeted out the exact same thing that you said earlier. It said, this is the perfect spot for Hideki to go nuclear here like he does, and then it's game over. And he's going to do that at some point. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen this year. This has been the worst year for him in a very long time.
You're right, but let's also remember, last year he won the first event of the season, didn't have a top 10 until he then won the last event of the season as well. So we know that he can go through these stretches where like the results aren't there and then everything clicks for him at once and he spikes and wins or at least contends. So this reminds me of like, a conversation that like basically every time in the NFL season where Tambo and I would have a discussion like this, where we were kind of debating between two players, the right answer in the end turned out to be just play them both. So maybe the answer is we should be playing both Hideki and JT and not deciding between the two.
Well, if we play Scheffler, Hideki, Thomas, and Alex Fitzpatrick, it leaves us with very little left on the board.
Yeah. So maybe we should play Hideki and JT outside of Scottie lineups, not within Scottie lineups.
Now, we can make this work. I wouldn't worry about that.
And actually, I will say, like, you asked me earlier, is there really no one in the 6Ks that I like? I think the best answer might then be, well, if there's no one that I like down here, just go to the super, super unique, crazy cheap guys like Horschel, who you just clicked, and just hope that, that unlocks a combination of expensive players that no one else is going to be able to have together because no one else is going that low. So I actually am more in favor of this lineup than you probably would have guessed.
This is a great lineup. That's why you should be in favor of it. So it's Scheffler, Hideki, and Thomas, Alex Fitzpatrick, Horschel, and Sung J M. So 3 6K guys. Probably not optimal of what you want to do. Sung J is really interesting to me because everyone will be off of him now after just deciding to no-show Colonial. But he does this. I would even say that going back to Ricky this week is probably not a terrible idea either. Yeah,
I think that's a good call. And while we're down here in this range and he's on the screen, what are your thoughts on Novak here? Because if you remember, you talked to him last year about this place and he mentioned the fact like he just couldn't figure out this thick rough. And there have been other events this year where I noticed he just can't figure out thick rough. And yet he just played pretty well at Colonial, or at least made a ton of birdies at Colonial. So what are your thoughts on Novak? Because if anyone in this range is going to make a ton of birdies, like that's what Novak really, really does. And so at this type of price range, like he doesn't stand out projection wise for me, at least in terms of like his expected strokes gained. But if I had to choose someone in the 6,400-ish range, I think he's clearly the one who has at least my most attention.
So I just went to the rabbit hole and put on the filter condition by long rough. That's the only filter that I put on, and I went back to the last year and just went to strokes gained approach out of that. Scheffler, a guy that I've bet on this week, Kurt Kitayama, Daniel Berger, Corey Connors, Siwoo. And then you have there's Alex Fitzpatrick, Ludvig, Henley, Adam Scott, Rose, Tommy, Xander, most of the guys that you would expect. I wonder who the worst guys are.
A lot of these guys, by the way, are up here because they avoid the rough quite well and they're hitting a higher percentage of their shots out of the fairway.
That's completely fair. Sung J hits a lot of fairways. He's just bad at approach.
Yes, he is.
So you have Matt McCarty, Meisner, Minwoo, Brian Campbell. I keep forgetting Brian Campbell's in all these tournaments. So Novak's, he's not good, he's not bad, he's just somewhere in the middle. I wonder if I can break this down to approach overall, rough proximity. Rough green and regulation rate in courses with thick rough. Alex Fitzpatrick is number one in his 10 rounds at 61%. We'll see where Novak ends up coming in that. Novak is below 50%. He's down there with like Norin, and the good guys in that number and just greens and regulation would be Alex Fitzpatrick, Hitsatsune, Alex Smalley, Chris Goddard, Jason Day, once again, Johnny Vegas, Rory Scottie, Ludvig, Kitayama, Nikolai, Pendrith, Cootie, Berger. A lot of Berger on the few things that we've looked at so far, by the way.
Yeah. Can you search Novak again?
Yep. Novak, good at
That's
47% green irregulation out of the rough, but the proximity is on par with guys that are like worse than him at hitting greens in regulation, and really bad from in close.
I was gonna say that's a lot of dark, deep red in the ranges that a lot of these shots out of the rough are gonna come from this week.
Yeah, so yeah, if you get him from 200 plus out of the rough, not so bad. You get him from 75 to 150, where you mentioned a lot of these are coming from. It's not going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm torn. We have this like giant red flag with him, especially just remembering you talking to him about this actual rough and how much it tripped him up. But there's a lot about his game and the way that he's playing right now that I do like. Mostly the fact that he's just making a crazy amount of birdies, and he's basically like the $6,400 version of Oberg right now, where every single round is like, man, he's making enough birdies to be in contention. Why is he way down the leaderboard like this? But that works pretty well for DraftKings scoring for a $6,400 player.
Do we just go with Brandt Snedeker? Dude shows up every tournament. He'll even make you a hole in one if you need it.
I probably won't be using Brandt Snedeker.
So the Scheffler builds are tough. If we do it that way, that's one way that we can go about it. If we do it the other way and just go to $7,300 and then just drop down into that range, Jason Day is never going to win here, right? Ever?
Probably not, but I don't hate the play just because there are at least aspects of his game that fit. The problem is his approach play has been really, really bad.
Well, what do we do with Jake Knapp then? Because if you had put Jake Knapp into this field 3 months ago, he'd be like top 10 on the betting board.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think my answer is if this were like, the Houston Open, I'd be in. If this were TPC Craig Ranch, I'd be in. Because this is such a difficult golf course, I probably want someone who's more polished right now than Knapp.
Okay, so let's do it this way. We have Scheffler in. Let's try to build a correlating lineup around him with guys that we think have the baseline skill set that plays at this course. Accuracy, short game, and approach. Shane Lowry, first person I think of. Straka, next person I think of.
Yep.
I mean, you could sell me on Noren in that regard if you really wanted to.
And Noren was a name that I was considering. I think Meisner is actually an interesting name here.
Okay,
and one thing I noticed about Meisner after placing over 2.5 bogeys on him in the final round is that he's actually pretty elite when it comes to bogey avoidance, which I wouldn't have totally guessed, but he's 48th in birdie or better percentage this year. He's 6th in bogey avoidance. So I think that skill set could actually play well here, in addition to the fact that he just kind of fits the golf course and the fact that he's accurate, a pretty good approach player, and definitely good around the greens.
Nick Taylor is someone who fits that mold. Short game, approach, accuracy. That's kind of his jam. Aaron Rye, I would throw into that mix.
Definitely Rye. I think you can throw Gerard into the mix. He doesn't have the short game that we're talking about, but just in terms of accuracy and approach, like, he could be in the leaderboard because he does those two things really, really well.
Well, that ends up being your lineup. Scheffler, Lowry, Straka, Taylor, Aaron Rye, Gerard.
I really like that. And I think the downside to this lineup is that I think this is the most common roster construction that you're going to see with Scottie. It's just going to be Scottie and a bunch of people very close to that $7,300 price range that you're left with.
I agree, but I don't think it's these guys.
That was my next point. It's like we found a way to get a contrarian combination of players where it's not that their performances are correlated, because like obviously, if Nick Taylor plays well, that doesn't affect Ryan Gerard in any way. But you are telling the same story with these guys, that these are the things that are going to matter. These are the guys who do those things really, really well. And maybe they all end up doing well as a result.
And the way to modify that, if you wanted to, was get rid of Gerard, get rid of Nick Taylor, and get rid of Aaron Rye. And then you pump in Daniel Berger, who popped up a bunch of times for us. I said I liked Alex Fitzpatrick. We can pump him in. And then we're back up to 78, where you could have a Kitayama, who I just really like. This style of course is his style of course. It doesn't mean he's going to play well, but where you need to miss areas with your driver, which he will, and just be good at ball striking, and hopefully, and these greens are super tough. Like, we've seen some shit putters win here.
Yeah. It's one of those like double-edged swords where you do see some crappy putters do well here because it is so important to be good tee to green and especially accuracy, irons, short game. And Kitayama does check those boxes. But it is also true that that putting is more predictive here than usual. It's just drowned out by some of the others. And I think the reason why putting has been more predictive here than usual is because this is one of those courses where like you're going to be left with a number of 4, 6, 8 foot putts for par because it's just that difficult of a golf course. You can't possibly have tap ins all day long. And so you do have to be able to make those. But, even someone like Kitayama, who's as bad as he is putting, does have weeks where he finds some confidence from that range and typically makes all of those.
We've seen some good putting weeks from him recently. Shockingly, they're all in majors.
Yeah, which probably is a good sign for a golf course like this. Like at least it means he's spiking on the more difficult greens and not the super easy greens.
Well, if I had to quiz you on what would be the fastest greens that people have seen so far this year, and expect fast greens, he gained 3 strokes putting at Riviera, and then he gained 3.7 strokes putting at the Masters, then 3 strokes putting at the PGA Championship. Like those would probably be the 3 fastest greens this year.
It's definitely among them, and they're going to be fast this week too.
Right. So let's try a different style of lineup now that we've pumped in some Scottie lineups. So this is the lineup that I built. Like my first look lineup was this lineup here: Fitzpatrick, Henley, Thomas, Kitayama, Ryan, Alex Fitzpatrick. What do you make of this style of lineup? 2 9s, 1 8, 2 7s, and a 6. Is that just too conventional?
No. The thing that stands. So first of all, I think I do like the overall structure of this lineup, and I like all of the plays in this lineup. I don't like leaving $700 on the table.
Well, that's okay. I'll get paid $700 at the end of the tournament. It'll be great. That's how this works, right? So the move is you can move up to Cam Young. The problem is that there was no one I wanted to move up to because I wanted to build a specific style of lineup. The move I would try to do here, as much as I like Justin Thomas, if I can move him up to Siwoo and just kind of take off, I guess, Aaron Rye a little bit and get down to... That's the thing. We're now back in this range where it's like Norin, Hitsune, Connors, Thigala. Like, I don't love any of these guys.
I do agree with that. I think the issue is, and no matter who you are looking at in a lineup that leaves $700 on the table, you're asking every single one of those guys to not just be the best player in their own price range, not just to outplay the guys who are a little bit below them in price, but to also outplay the guys that you could have theoretically upgraded to. And, I've been doing a lot of roster construction analysis in my Discord of late. And this is one of those things that like I immediately found lineups that leave over $500 on the table just really, really perform poorly across the board. And that's just the main reason why is like, you have to be perfect on all 6 of these guys to not have an upgrade that could have done a lot of, good things for you, whether it's Fitzpatrick to a guy within 700 above them, or whether it's, Rye to Smalley as you did here. Like there are just so many combinations that are probably better mathematically that it's just not a good idea to leave 700 on the table.
Is that the case for Showdown?
For PGA Showdown, yes. Where you start to see some value in leaving money on the table is where you're in these like gigantic showdown contests. Think like NFL Showdown, where duping is a very real risk. When that's not really a risk, like in any, small field PGA contest or something like that, it just like there's never ever a time you should do it. And even in large field PGA, you're not at much risk of duping unless you're like literally following the chalk build to a T and then just doing 1 or 2 variations off of that. So
I only mentioned this because when I won, and like I've had good success at Torrey Pines, playing the North course, although that's been worse this year and in the second round last year because that course actually played a bit more difficult than it had in the past. But round 1 last year, and I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years, I cap my roster build at $45,000 and just go from there. Because it doesn't feel like there's any rhyme or reason. Like you don't need the best players. You just need the guys who bomb it and make eagles and just load up on them. And if that's 6 guys in the 6,000s, good enough.
I think like that's definitely an instance where it makes more sense. And some of the time, like one thing that I've noticed in showdowns this year is, especially in these signature events where you have a limited field, when you get splits like that, whether it's, a wave split and one of the waves looks like it's going to be a lot better than the other, or like you mentioned, where like early in the season where they're actually different golf courses. There are times where what the PGA Tour will do is they'll say like, okay, well, we want all the best players playing in, prime time or in the best window on Friday on the best course. So you get like one wave where everyone's cheap. And what happens then is, like, let's say there are one or two pay up options in that wave who are actually good players. Well, those guys are going to be like 60% owned in Showdown. So in that instance, taking the cheaper options, leaving 1,500, 2,000 on the table, probably not the 5,000. Like I think your strategy could be just as effective with better players if you capped it at 1,500 left on the table or 1,000 left on the table, something like that, where you're now just, your advantage is not because you're leaving money on the table. It's that your like combinatorial ownership is just so much lower than the other people who are stacking the same thing that you're stacking. So that in and of itself is so advantageous that it makes up for the fact that you're, missing out on some projected, points.
You're missing out on the projected points. It's just my combinations of like goober guys who might make an eagle are just so much different than everyone else's. That turned out to be the biggest differentiator when Johnny Vegas and I forget who it was, like Pontus Nyholm or something like that, both go like birdie streak with an eagle in between on number 10 on the North Course. You're like, oh, I win.
Very true. And the other thing there is like in Showdown, it's much easier for a Pontus Nyholm to outscore, someone who's a better player in one round when he's on a really easy golf course than it is for, an Alex Fitzpatrick to outscore all of Akshay Bhatia, Jacob Bridgman, Gary Woodland, Wyndham Clark, Alex Norn, etc. over a 4-round sample.
Trying to find the best accuracy players with a short game. It's like basically like Gerard, no short game. Nick Taylor. Kuchar is interesting, former winner of this event. Matt McCarty, Berger, and then Harman. So you can build a lineup like this: Siwoo, Henley, Fitzpatrick. And if we just kind of like rank guys in that $9,000 range, I get that they don't have the firepower of some of the other ones, but I like those three guys and their styles of what they do well at this course in particular and how they're playing right now.
Yeah, I do too. And I think I'd give the edge to Gerard, actually, just because when he's playing well, I know that he's number one, making a ton of birdies, hitting the ball close a lot, but it's also like, when he's playing well, he doesn't have a weakness around the green. It's just not a strength. And so I think part of that is like, he's doing a pretty good job of controlling where he misses. And so he doesn't have a good short game, but he's not losing strokes around the green because he is in control of where he misses. And obviously that's as we talked about earlier, like that's a skill set that really, really is valuable around Muirfield Village.
What about Matt McCarty? The approach has been really good for Matt McCarty recently. Mm-hmm. The issue with him has frankly been he hasn't been putting each of the past 2 weeks. That's kind of his thing.
Oddly, I think if I were to take McCarty in any way, it would probably be an outright.
Really?
Yeah, because he's an extremely volatile event-to-event player. That's good for outrights. He has a fantastic contention performance score. That's very good for outrights. Not a great course fit, not projecting well. So I basically only want to do something with him that takes advantage of, number one, how volatile he is, and number two, how well he plays when he actually puts himself in contention, even though that's like a really, really rare occurrence probably for this field, this event.
It's too bad JT Poston sucks now because he would have been good here.
Yes, he would have.
I'll throw in Harman into that lineup and go back to Harman. So there's two guys that we haven't talked about at all. Like I'm good with fading Ludvig if he's going to be super popular, just to get him out of my life. Rory and Cam are kind of the only other two that I would think about. And you can basically build the same like Scheffler lineup that we built earlier, but with Rory and Cam Young.
Yeah, and I think the really interesting, like I know people don't love when we qualify everything with if he's really low owned, but these are the two guys who I think my opinion of them this week is going to be most dependent on their ownership because they aren't good course fits in the sense that like the things that they do extremely well are not rewarded as much here as they are on some other courses. The things that are rewarded a ton at this golf course are things that some of the guys around them do better than they do. But they're still elite players. They still have plenty of win equity, plenty of upside. They make a ton of birdies. So if the field just says, yeah, this isn't the course for these guys, and they end up 10%, 15%, 8%, when guys around them are 20, 25, 30, like that's a huge inefficiency that I would want to take advantage of. And in that case, I'd be playing Rory and or Cam.
So to take a look at those Scheffler lineups again, so you go Scheffler to the low, you had $7,300 left if you played Scheffler. If you played these two, you have $7,100, let's say, for four more guys. Or you could do what I did earlier, Siwoo, Henley, Fitzpatrick. That's about the same as well. And then you have to fill the 3 spots. I think I like the Henley, Siwoo, Fitzpatrick build the best.
I think I do too, but I also can pretty much guarantee that the field does as well. So the advantage to starting Cam and Rory.
I disagree. I mean, over those just 2 options, I think that the idea of the 3 6K guys, the 3 9K guys will be more popular. I don't think it's going to be these 3. I think you'll see Cantlay and Xander in there a whole lot more.
That's possible. And I also think we could see a lot of like similar builds that start with Oberg instead. But I do think there are going to be enough people who like the thing about these 3 that you selected is that they're very similar players. They have very similar skill sets. So anyone who's taking this approach that we're kind of talking about of who's accurate, good around the greens, and good with approach play, a lot of those people are going to land on this group of 3. But my larger point is like, even if you sub these guys out for, Oberg or Cantlay, something like that, my larger point is that combination of Rory Cam is going to be such a contrarian start that I think that's the side you lean to if you happen to just like all of the chalk value plays. If you want license to play a lot of the value chalk, then the kind of start that you want to look for is the kind of start that is more contrarian, and that would be like the Rory Cam pairing.
So if we did the Rory Cam pairing to start, where would you want to go with this sort of lineup? Like you can play more chalk players like you mentioned, but how do you think we fill that out?
Yeah, I think you just play like whoever your preference is. So I don't know if you have anyone that you prefer right now. I think my list would probably be like Gerard, Keegan, Norin, Batia. Since I already have Cam and Rory, and I'd be saying, okay, maybe distance is more predictive than usually is this season. I'd be interested in Woodland in this type of lineup. I'd be interested in Wyndham Clark in this type of lineup. You just basically hope that, okay, maybe he's just in better form now. And what we saw, in his last start is more of what we're going to see moving forward. And the other thing is like, if Wyndham finishes 30th, he's probably 15th in DraftKings scoring because he's just such a ridiculously good scorer when it comes to making birdies and stuff. So I think I just kind of live in that range. And again, like my preferences are going to be different than your preferences and someone else's preferences. If you start Rory Cam, you can literally just say, who are the plays that I like the most in that range? And you go hammer them.
Alex Blickle. Follow him at ftnfantasy.com. You can follow me at the PME. You're back with Tambo Wednesday morning live on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel.
You got it. Yeah. 10:30 a.m.
And then me and Tambo next week for Duckanajan Open. I think me and you are going to get together to do a DraftKings draft along with Spencer is putting up this new tournament. I think you're with me. I think Cust is with us. And I think Roz is with us.
I can't tell you how excited I am to do a show with Cust. That's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
It's more frustrating than you think.
I'm sure you're right, but I'm also going to enjoy that.
And I'll have World Cup shows coming out later this week with Cust on them. And I'll have Keith joining me from Muirfield Village to talk about, what's going on, milkshakes. Oh, I heard this might be the last week of Live. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they're off for 6 weeks after this. That this week at Valderrama, then rug pull, and everyone's done.
I can definitely see that happening, and curious to see how that affects some of the bigger names. And like we've talked about this before, there are guys that I'm very excited to see back. There are guys that I'm like, I don't really care what happens with this guy. He can disappear for all I care.
Who are the 3 most excited guys that you would have to come back?
Definitely Rahm and Bryson.
And Hatton?
I think Hatton's next for me. Maybe Cam Smith.
Really? I guess he's trying again. He's now powered by Claude.
That's the thing. Like if Cam Smith is trying and he's consistently contending, I love watching Cam Smith when he's playing well. Like his short game and his putting their art. Like it's as good as it gets watching golf for a golf fanatic. If he's semi interested and finishing 40th every week, I don't really care. So at least with Hatton, like I know Hatton's going to continue to care and going to continue to try and play really good golf. So in that regard, I would choose Hatton over Cam. But I also like I very much agree with the point that you've made about Bryson over the years, which is we've probably gotten the perfect balance of Bryson over the last few years. And so if someone out there said, well, I want Rahm, Cam Smith, and Hatton, and I don't care if Bryson becomes a YouTube golfer, I'd probably be more on board with that thought than most.
Yeah, as long as I get to see Bryson at the 4 majors, that's enough Bryson in my life. And get him at the Ryder Cup and President's Cup, whatever. Like, I want him at the big events because I think he makes those more special. I think it's more fun, but I can't, my sanity can't deal with him on a week-to-week basis and whatever nonsense that he's up to. At least on Liv, you just don't have to, like this week when he was analyzing his swing with AI. It's like, of course he fucking was.
Yeah, and I actually am interested in the way that he's like pushing, golf club design, and I think that in a weird way, like the efforts that he's making to make clubs better for him might actually be the thing that like the USGA and the RNA need to be more strict about what is a conforming club and what is not. Because like personally, my take on the rollback is we only have a rollback issue or a need to roll back the golf ball because clubs and golf balls have gotten way too forgiving where they're correcting misses. And I would rather see like, I want the ball to do what you did to it with the golf club. I don't want the ball to correct itself midair because you made a really poor swing. Now at the amateur level, that's a great thing, but like that's an area where I think bifurcation could actually be really useful. And so maybe Bryson's, efforts in that regard will actually make the tour and the USGA be more strict in that way. And I think that would do a better job of controlling distance because then guys wouldn't be able to chase distance the way they do now. They'd have to put more effort into being accurate off the tee, controlling the flight. And we'd see more flighted tee shots or more mini drivers because they would know, okay, if I'm swinging at 190 miles an hour or 185 miles an hour at this thing, any miss is magnified, which right now it's not because the clubs and balls are so self-correcting. But I'm with you. Like outside of that, I don't need to hear Bryson talk about anything at all in this world. And the less of him, the better in that regard.
Who would be the guy? So outside of Taylor Gooch, what a run from Taylor Gooch that somehow he made himself the most hateable person on Liv.
It's so funny. Who else I'd actually be really interested in coming back and with the condition that he came back and actually played semi-good golf would be Dustin Johnson. I think it'd be really cool if he came back and played well.
Me too. And it's not like he's so old he couldn't do that. He's younger than Adam Scott and Justin Rose. Yeah,
he absolutely can come back and play well. I think, and actually, I think he probably would play a lot better just from playing more than what we've seen of him in his Liv time so far.
Well, do you think that Cam Smith hired Claude Herman as a coach because he knows that Liv is ending and now he has to try again?
I think it's a high possibility, yeah. But I also think that like even when Cam Smith doesn't care about his week-to-week performance, he does want to do well in the majors. And like
I don't know, man. It felt like he took 2 years off.
I think to some degree, yes, but I also think that like he just wasn't able to do anything more than he did in those majors. And I think that like that was a frustration for him where he doesn't really care if he plays poorly 1 week to the next, but he does care when he wasn't able to get in contention at all for an entire major season because like I think he and DJ are probably in a similar place where they're not going to go and grind from 1 week to the next. So their reps are coming in competition, and the more competition reps they can get, the better they're going to play.
Well, that will do it for me at the PME, betspertsgolf.com/Mayo to get yourself a discount, to get the projections, the ownership, the optimizer. Plus, Ron's been hot fire with outright bets up there as well. I think you just go to betspertsgolf.com and forget those ones for free. You should probably go do that over listening to me on it, but I will be back with the final word with Keith very late on Tuesday evening as he joins me from Jack's course at Muirfield Village. I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!